We would like to know what are your thoughts on punishments and penalties when there is deliberate misconduct.
I fully agree that it's important that the regulator actually starts regulating and actually starts biting. And we are doing that. The number of companies which were called out for different forms of malpractice is increasing. The punishments are getting more and more severe. And I must say it is having a very salutary effect. Certain types of complaints which are coming in, we have now built a system where we call it the integrated grievance management system. It's a very good system. And that is that all complaints against an insurance company, whether it is a company A, B or C or whatever, are all centralized in one place. Now they are not centralized. The complaint remains with the insurance company, but we have a system which can vampire on each of these companies, collect the data so it's available for an analysis on real time. And that is a tremendous amount of integration which insurance companies have done with the systems set up and mandated by the regulatory authority. And that is throwing up tremendous amount of insights into this entire process of mis-selling, of complaints and so on. For us in the IRDA, complaints no doubt are complaints and have to be redressed and ensure that individual justice is done. No question. Point of view is raised. But more importantly, from a regulatory aspect, we tend to look upon complaints as really consumer feedback about where the industry is heading. Because I think the regulatory body, we have articulated various mechanisms for settling individual disputes. It might be the ombudsman system. The front line, of course, is the insurance companies themselves. And we have required, through the governance mechanism and the governance guidelines of insurance companies, we have required that there should be a separate subcommittee of the board which deals with policyholder issues. That's one. We have also required that cases which are rejected for whatever reason, any claim which is rejected, should be analyzed and should be considered by the subcommittee of the board. That is again one of the issues which were raised in the afternoon meeting. There is also a system where in some companies they have engaged very experienced, though retired senior members, judges and so on, to have a look to see whether the standard tenets of contract law, of human justice and so on have prevailed while coming to a decision on a given case. That's a kind of model which is increasingly being used. Finally, we also have a mechanism of the ombudsman, which have been established in different locations in the country. As a whole architecture, we look at individual grievances. Now, the IRDA, we believe, or the regulatory authority, we believe, must be in a position to stand back and see where the system as a whole is going, to see what kind of corrections might need to be taken, either at a regulatory plane, or at a structural plane, or at which particular thing. If we also get into individual grievance settlements, perhaps we believe that the main focus of what this body should be would be lost. That does not mean that we don't do it. What we then do, we have a fairly, let's say, statistically sound-based system where, on a random basis, to ensure about anywhere between 94 to 98% reliability, on a random basis, we do take up individual cases for detailed inspections of companies to look at what their practices and so on. Those results will come out, and that will lead to exactly what you had wanted or suggested. That is a more vigorous and rigorous implementation of the regulatory architecture in India for protection of the consumer, which is the main focus, and that's the first sentence of the IRDA Act. I only would suggest that bodies such as regulatory bodies should develop and maintain systems of doing this, rather than individual cases. We should also build individual case responses like we have your ombudsman, you have the courts, you have the consumer courts and all the rest of it. That's fine. But the regulatory body as such should not be, in my view, should not be tied down by looking at individual cases. Otherwise, the main focus will be lost. And that's what I wish to say. Coming to the bank assurance and the complaints which are made as a bank qua bank. The bank qua bank is actually a corporate agent and is fully amenable to the discipline of the regulatory authority. The only thing is that in the current form of the Insurance Act, the level of punishment which the Act permits imposition is rather minimal. So we are hoping for the amendment of the bill to take place, and hopefully at that time we will be armed with bigger teeth.
Is there a role of the regulator, absolutely at the policy level, in terms of guiding the industry or the policyholders, to say that before you sell endowment or ULIP or whatever, you would want the policyholder to be exposed to the idea of a term plan? Is there something, some development role is there for the regulator or not? Is what I'm asking.
First response, the proportion of term plans, pure term plans being sold is actually increasing. It is a very small proportion. If I recall the numbers right, it was the order of 7%, so it's increasing. The second thing is that there are a large number of web-based opportunities for closing insurance transactions, sales, purchase of contracts. And several of them are these types of products. And that is the case. So I think in the medium term you will find term plans, pure term plays, will work out and people are buying them. But there is only one thing, that is a term plan. If the claim doesn't happen, most person tends to view it as a waste of money. So that's the trade-off which people take. Though I would say, as a matter of prudence, I would say that everybody should have a term plan, and he should buy the term plan with the maximum amount of money which he wishes to when he is very young, so that he can protect his family and everybody else adequately with duration and forget about it. And the rest of financial planning only starts thereafter. That has to be done. That's good prudence. But yes, this thing is increasing and it is widening and will happen. The second question about trying to mandate it in terms of how you sell and so on, that's rather difficult, isn't it? I thought the whole purpose about the modern economy was to move away from those kinds of traditional pressures. And I think we have avoided that for good reason, but to some extent, I think there is a role of the regulator in India which is different perhaps from the role of the regulator in other societies, and that is, we are taking a more deliberate stance on the elements of a product design. We had brought out what might be the boundaries within which a unit product could be designed. We are now working on the boundaries within which the other types of products can be designed. Various issues were raised with the Life Council and so on. Discussions were also held with the members of the Life Council. Certain issues were crystallized. Further, you see, in a unit plan, the entire loss is done to the policyholder. The whole risk is with the policyholder. And that's why he has to be protected more carefully. In a traditional plan, it's impossible for anybody to get a zero return. You may get a very small return, but you certainly can't get a zero return, and there's no question of getting a negative return in real terms. In a unit product, however, the whole thing can be a negative return. The entire money invested in a unit product can be wiped out. It just depends upon what the underlying security is. A unit is like a derivative. It's based on something else, that value. And there have been cases where, for example, if you enter into the unit at the peak of the index, say about 21, 22, and if you recall, it fell down to about 14 or 15. And supposing you were at that end, you would be wiped out. There's no question about it. And once being wiped out, there is no way it can be rebuilt because this money is gone. Whereas on traditional products, they're all backed by a guarantee of the company. There is no way you can get a negative return on a traditional product. And that's why that is the area of first focus. But that doesn't mean everything is hunky-dory in the traditional space either. It's only the manner these are going to be designed, what might be the factors which go into these kinds of products. They're a different set and they require a different treatment and a different methodology of approaching the conditions under which these products will have to be designed.
Hello, sir. I find that, from what I understand, your prescription is really socializing medicine. And we obviously find that the government can't get much right. Take the case of Air India. So what we are suggesting, what I think is that it would be an enormous burden on the government, and it would bankrupt the government like it is doing in the UK. And the freedom of choice that patients have just now and the doctors have would vanish. Am I right or have I jumped the gun? That's all.
No, I don't think you're right. In fact, I think you're wrong. But what is important is not whether you're right or wrong. What is really important is you have raised a good question. I'm saying that is the debate which has to go forward. You may well be correct. But I'm saying that that question must be answered. And it must be answered only by further debate on that.
So would you answer it just now?
I don't think I can give answers. I won't give myself that right. I can give an opinion.
Okay.
And in my opinion, what you say is not correct.
It is not correct.
I would say there is no question of socializing medicine or lack of customer choice, because even today, within the provision of the preferred network, you can go wherever you wish. Now, if you are saying all I wish to do is go to Beach Candy or to Mayo Clinic, that's your choice, but not at this price, you need that. But we are talking about what is the minimum universal health cover which we can manage. And perhaps if the procedures and all the rest of it are in place, it is quite likely that even bigger hospitals will buy into the PDL. For example, in the irrigation stream in Andhra Pradesh, as indeed in Tamil Nadu, even the hospitals which correspond to the Jaslokes and Beach Candies of Bombay, even those hospitals have bought it. In fact, they have built whole wards to look at, to help those kinds of patients. So I don't think that will be compromised in terms of individual choice. No. And if you are saying if it's socialization of medicine, what is it supposed to mean? Does it mean are you going to give, what I understand from what you say is, you are providing access to large numbers of Indians, 1.2 crores, great. If that's what you mean, I'll say let's have more of it.
Yeah, I'm talking about Medicare policy for senior citizens. Clear cut guidelines in 2009 that they need not migrate, the senior citizens need not migrate to 2007 policy, and they can continue the old policy. Now, most of the insurance companies, especially New India Assurance, they are not even aware, or they claim that they are not aware of the agents, the development officers up to the DGM levels, and we have to make at least 50 calls to tell them that look here, we do not want to migrate to 2007. Even they say that the software is not available in the company. They have to physically type that you are not migrating to 2007, and I think 90% of the senior citizen public do not know that this exists, and the development officers and agents are totally keeping quiet. And I came to know that they know about it, but they said if we inform you, the policy holder will lose our jobs. Now I have also written to IRT Hyderabad several times. The insurance companies are not giving them the policy which is the old policy.
I think it's utterly unacceptable that insurance companies are doing this.
Yes.
And about what we are doing about it, obviously, I can't offhand answer as to what exactly is being done with the complaint which we have filed. But certainly, this is an important matter which we are raised. We will be taking it up with the Committee of Insurance to see whether there is a truth in it, whether there has been a regulatory breach, and if so, what exactly might be the appropriate way forward. Sure.
Sir, talking about the socialization of the whole health medicine, I find that health is an ill-defined topic. Health can include luxuries and health can include necessities. Now, Irrigation, as you mentioned, deals with tertiary healthcare. It has been found that tertiary healthcare has not contributed to the life expectancy of the whole mass. It is selectively useful to some. So it is irrational, in my opinion, that the tertiary healthcare should be covered under government obligation. It is individual who benefits, whereas it is the secondary healthcare and primary healthcare which prominently contributes to the health of the society. So it is a better plan to include the primary and secondary healthcare up to 30,000, as you mentioned, which covers almost all illnesses of the people, for contribution and that policy would be more successful, because it is the market which is propagating the, you mentioned the chief was a cardiologist, and they go on asking for these things. I find, I am a doctor, I find that 90% of the CT scans are uncalled for. There are more than 50% of the bypass and other operations which may not be necessary. And there is no effort to control the cost, and it is almost impossible because of the whole marketing process. So my feeling is tertiary care has to be taken care by the individuals or by a separate policy, and the government policy should restrict only to the secondary and primary care, then only it will be effective. And to rule out last, and to rule out, you mentioned that some people will have to contribute and some, the below poverty line will be taken care of. How do you distinguish them? I have a very simple policy. You said people don't go to primary centers. I disagree. If they don't go and if they can catch a bus or a taxi or to come to town, they can afford. That 40% of the people. So those people who come through the primary, through the secondary to the tertiary, screened and filtered, are the only people who should get the free treatment. Those who want to come directly will have to contribute.
Sir, I think I should introduce Dr. Narkani. I should introduce Dr. Narkani. He hasn't said anything about himself. He's a former dean of Sion Hospital. He spent his entire life crusading about this, and he's done some amazing work, including in trauma care. And most of what he says comes from personal experience and having implemented it.
I would say there's a lot in what the doctor has pointed out. And in fact, in the Public Health Foundation report, which has got outstanding persons who are working in Jamde and various other places in the entire design, they've gone even one step further. They have said, let's not worry too much about primary, secondary and tertiary. What they say, if you really want a health dividend, we should look at provision of safe drinking water, provision of proper waste management, human waste disposal, provision of proper nutrition and education, and this is the set which really government should focus on. Now, maybe right. Maybe in terms of overall outcome, maybe that's exactly where the government should focus on and not focus on. In your case, you are saying don't bother about the tertiary, only look at primary and secondary. The Public Health Foundation says you look at drinking water, there is that education and so on and so forth. Fine. But I don't know whether this afternoon when we were talking to the senior citizens, for example, are they not really looking at, look, supposing I need a bypass, who's going to do it? I'm not very sure as to which market we are talking about. And I'm not very sure, and I'm not convinced that when we are talking about healthcare today, we should turn around and say, no, what we are really looking at is that, and we should not look at this. I'm saying let's not make the good the enemy of the better. Sure. I would therefore think, saying that whenever we are talking about healthcare, pushing the argument to nutrition, water and disposal of waste, it's fine. It's perfectly logical, there's no dispute about it. But I'm saying that this is the point. In my view, if you're going to look at healthcare, certainly look at for primary and secondary, no question. The choice is not, are you going to look at primary and secondary and only look at tertiary? No, that's not what we are saying. We are saying the system must look at all three. And how best can that be achieved?
No sir, I think I have slightly misunderstood. What I have said is that there will be a screening method for those, you mentioned senior citizens. Now if he goes to a primary center, goes to the secondary center and is found to be required, certainly he will get at the free cost or under the cover. But those who can afford have to be isolated because the funds required for secondary care and primary care are falling too short. They are not sufficient. And therefore, those cases are neglected at the cost of, this is happening in Goa, this is happening in Andhra Pradesh. That the secondary care, the patient who requires appendicitis or obstruction or ulcer treatment doesn't get it. But money is spent on the highest...
No. But I'm saying in the model which I'm saying, If the appendectomy is done in a government hospital, they will be paid the same rate by that insurance company. Not as if they are going to do it free fund there. No. If the standard procedure and protocols and limits for a certain procedure, in this case appendectomy, let us say 18,000 rupees, fine. And if somebody has gone to some, let's say the Nellore government hospital and got the procedure done, good. The insurance will pay that hospital 18,000. Excellent. But it's not as if this part is free and the payments are only there. Not at all. Not at all. So it should be a mechanism where all these are compensated based on standard protocols and accepted treatment rates and so on and so forth.
Sir, I am an insurance agent. I have been in this industry for 15 years. I have been in this industry for 15 years. I am an insurance agent. So first is, why should I be tied with only one company? And second is, if there are restriction on charges, then the cap on commissions will automatically come.
Well, the cap charges are there, but as you have pointed out, it's violated. So the existence of the cap doesn't mean the cap is going to be followed. By and large, it is followed. If you have a look at the entire mass of it, it doesn't even touch 40%. It's of the order of 22, 23%, something of that order.
My average commission is 60%.
Well, that might be true. I'm talking of the industry as a whole. Your particular case, obviously, being from, I would like to say, but being from the commercial capital of India, I'm sure you know the ways of all kinds of commercial things.